Right, we will not tolerate any IMF conditionality that affects existing agreement. UTAG warns government ahead of its engagement with the International Monetary Fund. Details as organized labor raises concerns about a possible freeze on wages and employment.
Have always known that will impose needless hardships on Ghanaians. Government will not employ into the public sector. Wages were frozen at their real levels. And we think that this time workers are already struggling too much.
Also tonight, 34 civil society organizations and 10 individuals pile pressure on government to demand accountability on a raft of issues, including COVID-19 expenditure, Achimota Forest reclassification, and the government's plan to go ahead with the Ijapa deal.
We respectfully urge the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit of the COVID-19 funds. We demand that the Auditor General acts with extremity on this matter.
And later, we build up to our coverage of the NPP National Officers elections with focus on the man who is number 5 on the ballot in a push to be fifth-time lucky.
Everybody's saying time has come. It is time for him to ascend the chairmanship seat of this party.
And in business, Bank of Ghana hints of possible license withdrawal of banks with restructures, exposing them to multiple fraud cases.
And in sports, Black Maidens Management Committee Chairman Nana Odrosafo says they will appeal against the ban imposed on them not to participate in the next 2 AFCON qualifiers.
Safe driving saves lives. Drive safe.
And in our Drive Safe campaign today, some commercial drivers are raising concerns about poor road markings affecting visibility at night, causing major fatalities on our roads.
Marking at the road, if it is fade, is the hardly for you to see, identify your other vehicle at your side.
All the way is spoiled because the driver, they are suffering. I don't know, the government, they are not watching the road or not.
We have that and more in tonight's edition of Newsnight live on Joy 99.7 FM. We are on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. Also on myjoyonline.com and on Facebook. You can post your comments there. Also on WhatsApp is 055-1111-997. I am Amefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah. We start tonight with the Labour Front, which appears to be boiling, even as government goes to the IMF asking for a bailout. And the University Teachers Association of Ghana is the latest to warn government ahead of its engagement with the International Monetary Fund that it will not tolerate any IMF conditionality that negatively affects the existing agreements between government and UTAC to improve the conditions of service of its members.
Well, the university teachers in a statement said although it is ready to provide technical support, government must ensure that decisions taken will not disadvantage conditions of service of labor unions, especially UTAG. Well, let's go through the statement that was issued a while ago by the leadership of UTAG on this situation. What does it say? You've been looking at it, Evans.
Well, they refer to the statement that was issued by the information minister last week, announcing the government is going to the IMF for a bailout, and they indicate that typically an IMF program may result in fiscal discipline, which aims at cutting down on excessive expenditure by the government and may help the government to focus on revenue generation to propel the economy to a path of steady growth. So they understand that that is what the IMF is going to do. And then they go back into history that between 1966 and 2015, Ghana has been to the IMF 16 times to seek support to address, of course, many economic issues. This will be the 6th time by the country that the country is going to the IMF for support if you look at the Fourth Republic in 30 years. They insist that it means that on average, Ghana seeks the support of the IMF every 5 years to address its economic problems. It is therefore safe to assume that support of the IMF every 5 years to address economic challenges is not really the solution to the problem, and that the country cannot continue to resort to the IMF, and that as a labor union that trains and produces the nation's workforce, including those involved with providing the requisite policies for economic growth and development in the country, UTAC would have preferred government to seek homegrown solutions to the economic challenges that we currently face. And they say that this is premised on our recent unpleasant history of previous engagements with the IMF. Now, as an association, they believe that their members include some of the best and world-class experts across all sectors of the economy. And they think that the time has come to comprehensively diagnose the root causes of the recurrent problems that always lead us to the IMF and proffer solutions that can permanently address the problems. And they talk about what they call inclusive and sustainable development in our country. And that for that to happen, UTAG believe that Ghana would need to have homegrown policies developed by home-based experts and implemented by home-based practitioners. And that they are asking the president and the government to take advantage of the opportunity of going to the IMF this time round to make use of local experts to support the development of comprehensive program that will form the basis of all engagements with the IMF. Now, in this regard, UTAG, due to the statement, is ready to provide the technical backstopping support services to the government to analyze the policy options and develop the program for effective and efficient engagement with the IMF. But this is how they end, which is critical, that they, and I want to quote this, it says, "We wish to state that the government of Ghana must ensure that the conditions subsequent to the support from the IMF, they mean, will not disadvantage the conditions of service of labor unions, including UTAG." And this they put in bold and they highlighted. In particular, quote, "In particular, UTAG would not tolerate any IMF conditionality that negatively affects the existing agreements between government and UTAG to improve the conditions of service of its members."
So that's the statement signed. It's signed by the national president and, of course, the national secretary, Professor Solomon Nunu and Dr. Asaria Asante Ano. And thankfully, we've been joined on the phone by the general secretary of UTAG, Dr. Samuel Asante Ano. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. So I see some uneasiness in your statement with government's decision to initiate talks with the IMF, for instance. But really, you've cited history to back your uneasiness. But really, what is the fear of UTAG this time round?
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity and good evening to all your listeners. As you already know, UTAG is a labor union, and then we are made up of a lot of professionals, which basically cuts across even all sectors. And as key stakeholders in national development, we feel unease with the engagement, and most importantly, going back to IMF. You realize that from what we wrote, there are repercussions if government decides to go on this tangent. We have had discussions prior to this event, and Labour was on a tangent that there was going to be a review of the single spine salary structure. And especially with UTAG, you realize that because of the free SHS, there is increase in numbers. Faculties might have to employ to augment the existing staff, but the implications of going to IMF sometimes might curtail some of these activities that would help to augur well for the faculty. So labor is at stake now when we are going to IMF. We don't want a situation where because of going to the IMF, the labor force is not well catered for. And so there is more unemployment because you are not able to employ people. And then faculties will be stressed. Their health will be at stake because they cannot employ. So the list goes on and on and on. And that's why we feel unease with this move. And therefore, we are reminding government that we have the professionals and we have to stick with these home-based professionals to profile solutions that will be sustainable. And these professionals should be an all-inclusive professional. It shouldn't be that because of the political divide, a certain group of people will not be consulted.
No, but this solution, the first part, at least the second part, you're saying that you have some experts also that you offer government as they go into the program. But the first part, the homegrown solutions and the experts that you're putting forward, a little bit too late, isn't it? Because at the time that we needed it, it's past. We've started negotiations. We are starting actually on Wednesday.
Yes. So, like we said in our statement, normally during this process, there are engagements and they are going to make some arguments to the IMF. And one of them would be education, definitely, because what is the agenda currently for the government with regards to education, especially tertiary education? I've already talked about the numbers. We all know that that is a fact. Are we going to compromise that so that faculties will not be able to employ, so that staff are burdened? The salary structures, we have already talked about it. Are people going to be, our people and our members going to be worse off? And with the increasing numbers, definitely this is not the tangent that we want to go. We've already seen the demonstrations that are going on, and this also destabilizes the country. So it is important that during such negotiations, these important factors are laid there.
Well, government is already going, but really, we are not in normal times. And it appears that from what you're saying, you are sticking to the existing agreement you have with government in terms of the monies you're expecting to be paid your members. Should you not also be tightening your belts since we are not in normal times, rather than issuing such warnings to government ahead of this negotiation?
So the question we ask in our statement is, why are we always coming back to this point? So you've heard the argument in the media that there is a need for fiscal discipline. And this is crucial. And for us to be disciplined, it means that certain leakages would have to be addressed. And we cannot ignore also the important role that the education sector also plays in the country. You don't want to get to the point where the education sector is not able to cater for the students that come in the tertiary institution. That is also going to compound the situation that we already find ourselves. And therefore, it is important that we weigh in all these options and then come up with a holistic and a sustainable program so that there wouldn't be any need to go back to the IMF. There are several examples, and like I said, we have the experts. And so we need to use these experts who are already here with us.
Mm-hmm. So am I hearing you say that government should hold the process? Hello?
We are saying that we want the experts to be consulted if they want to engage with the IMF.
Okay. We're grateful. And that's Dr. Samuel Santiano. He's the General Secretary of UTAG ahead of our negotiations with the IMF.
So we've heard from the 4 teacher unions in the pre-tertiary. They've called the strike. They're not hesitating. Tomorrow morning, your child in the basic school will not have a teacher in the classroom. Then we've heard from UTAG now. In the last few minutes, the TUC has issued a strongly worded statement. And I want to bring you portions of this statement. It says the TUC considers the decision to head to the IMF by government, quote, a tragic mistake and a sad one for Ghana. This will be the 18th time our country's economy will be handed over to the IMF to manage. It is very sad because it is a clear indication that we cannot manage our own affairs. We fully acknowledge the impact of global developments on Ghana's economy. At the same time, the current state of the economy suggests that the robust economy government claimed to have built before the pandemic was not resilient enough. It must have been built on, quote, a foundation of straw. But Ghanaians were told that our economy was strong and stable. It is now very obvious that the economy of Ghana is in a desperate situation, but we are of the firm view that handing over the management of the economy to the IMF is not the solution to our problems. And of course, they go on to talk about the negative impact of the IMF programs on this country over the years. and they talk about the fact that this is the bit about jobs. This meant that while the chip compound were without skilled medical personnel, that is the net freeze that we saw the last time we went to the IMF, trained nurses were picketing at the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations for jobs. That IMF program produced an association of unemployed graduates for the first time in the history of our country. The program also led to a steep decline in real wages. The hardships all these IMF programs brought on Ghanaians were enormous and needless. What we got in return was an economy still overly dependent on production and export of raw materials and import of manufactured products. Then it goes into a history of IMF programs and how it doesn't help. And so they conclude by saying, we would like to remind government that as part of the negotiations for this one, as part of the negotiation for the 2021 and 2022 base pay, we agreed to the 4% and 7% pay increases respectively on condition that government will not declare redundancies in a public service.
Condition 1.
Yes. And that government will continue to employ young people into the public service.
Condition 2.
We would like government to note that the working people of Ghana will do whatever it takes to prevent the imposition of needless hardships on them and the good people of Ghana. And that's a very strongly worded statement there that the TUC is making, telling government to note that the working people of Ghana will do whatever it takes to prevent the imposition of needless hardships on them and the good people of Ghana. It's signed by Dr. Yalban himself, with the Secretary General of the TUC.
Well, it started last night on the probe also when we spoke to the Director, Labour Research and Policy Institute at the TUC, Dr. Kwabena Otu, on government's decision.
One, they do not offer any lasting, durable solutions to the country's problems. They will scratch on the edges of the problem. The fundamental problems of the economy will remain after 3-4 years of implementing. Second, they will immediately impose action. So we saw that in the last IMF Extended Credit Facility Program, government could not employ into the public sector. Wages were frozen at their real levels. And we think that this time, workers are already struggling too much, and it will be too much to ask them to sacrifice again. But our fear is that IMF programs, as we have always known them, will impose needless hardships on Ghanaians, and in the end deliver nothing substantial by way of improving our economic circumstances.
That's the Director, Labour Research and Policy Institute at the TUC. Well, the Information Minister, Kojo Ponkrumah, has been telling us about how subsidies will be affected once we go to the IMF.
There's a whole raft of expenses that we would have to look at as we sit. It may not be a wise thing for me, even before we sit into those negotiations, to start, posturing on these ones. I think we should give ourselves the opportunity to look at that. So on the revenue side, on the expenditure side, on the debt side, the time is now coming for those negotiations to take place. What I can tell you is that the IMF is not a fan of subsidies of any kind. And you would have to make a very good case to hold on to any subsidies that you may have in your fiscal framework already. So it will be some set of difficult conversations there. But tough times call for tough people.
Thanks for sticking with us here on Newsnight. We'll be going for business shortly. Also, some of your messages that you've been sending via WhatsApp. But tonight, 34 leading Ghanaian civil society organizations and 10 individuals of high repute have come together to turn the heat on government, demanding accountability on a number of important national issues. Well, the group known as Coalition for Democratic Accountability and Inclusive Governance say they have grave concerns about the prevailing socio-economic and governance issues affecting the country. The coalition warned urgent action on COVID-19 expenditure accounting, as well as the government's plan to go ahead with the Ijapa deal. Well, my colleague Kwekwa Sante has been monitoring events of this grand coalition, joins me in studio with more on this. So 34 civil society organizations, 10 individuals. Please, who are they?
So, Amefa, all the top, those ones you could call the top civil society organizations have signed on to this. Let me mention some of them. The Ghana Integrity Initiative, CDD Ghana, Media Foundation for West Africa, ASEP, Imani Africa, Africa Education Watch, Star Ghana, Send Ghana, TUC, IDEG, One Ghana Movement, Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Center for Local Governance Advocacy, the Fourth Estate, Citizen Movement Ghana, Oxfam, ASEPA Africa, Odikro, West Africa Center for Counter Extremism. 34 of them have signed on to this. If you look at the individual side, you have Akoto Ampao, the renowned legal luminary. Martin Pebu is also there. Samson Ladi Anyeni is there. Clara Kasati is there. Professor Kwame Kakari is there. Professor Techiwa Menu is also there. Kingsley Ofer is there. Professor Kofi Abochi is there. Professor Godfred Bobkin is there. And then we have Abdul Karim Mohammed. So 34 CSOs and these 10 organizations coming together to form this organization.
Interesting. Well, but amongst others, they have concerns. Let's start with the Ejapa deal. What exactly is their concern there?
So they want government to immediately put a stop to the Ejapa deal that government wants to push through in Parliament. We know that the Ministry of Finance say they've now revised the deal and will be seeking to put it before Parliament to get it passed and approved. These civil society organizations say it's not a good deal. It is not in the interest of Ghana for that deal to go forward. So it must be stopped in its tracks.
And there's been an accounting of for COVID-19 expenditure in Parliament. It appears they are not satisfied with it. What exactly do they want?
Right. So they say even the decisions that have been taken by Parliament to go ahead and institute a committee to investigate is not enough. They want the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit. We can hear from Nana Asantua Afejino. She spoke on behalf of the CSOs.
Coalition has closely followed the issues related to government's accounting of COVID-19 expenditure. It is imperative that the expenditures made in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, for which Ghanaians continue to pay levies, are properly accounted for. We welcome the Speaker of Parliament's ruling to task the Parliamentary Select Committees on Health and Finance to look into reconciling the figures. That work will deal with the disbursements made for COVID-19, but it does not deal with accounting for the actual expenditures, which needs to be addressed urgently by the Auditor General. Given the recent public allegation by the Second Northern Regional Vice Chairperson of the MPP, Madame Felicia Tete, that some monies were disbursed to various structures of the governing party under the guise of COVID-19 related expenditure, we respectfully urge the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit of the COVID-19 funds. We demand that the Auditor General acts with extremity on this matter in the interest of public accountability.
Well, Kweku, so that's not all. They want other things. They're making other demands on things that ought to be done. Tell us about it.
So they talk about government's handling of the economy. They say that the measures that have been taken so far by government is not potent enough to mitigate the serious economic challenges that Ghanaians are facing currently. They also speak about the recent matters regarding the Achimota forest. They want the president to withdraw that executive instrument that reclassified portions of the Achimota forest. They say some politically exposed persons are benefiting from that reclassification and they want action on that. They also want action on the affirmative action bill. Amefa, you spoke about that a few weeks ago. That bill has been in Parliament for over a decade now. They want government to take an action on it now. And they're asking the president to do something about the gender ministry, whose minister we know has been outside the country for close to a year now. They want something to be done. Is she the substantive minister? If she's not, then someone else should be put there. So these are the concerns that these 34 CSOs, together with these 10 individuals, are putting out now.
Thank you very much, Kweku. Let's speak to Dr. Kojo Asante with the CDD, and the CDD is a member of this coalition. Dr. Asante, thank you for your time here on News 9.
Good evening, Evans. Good evening, Amefa.
Good evening.
So the list is pretty comprehensive, the demands that you're already making. I wonder if there is a formal attempt to get this formally laid before Parliament and government for action.
I thank you very much. I think we have to deal with some of these demands, send it to the right office. So, for example, the Auditor General, with the letter will be sent this week on the issue of the surcharges and the issue of the asset declaration, and actually it's asset and liabilities declaration disclosure, and also the issue of the COVID-19 funds that have, the auditing, the forensic auditing of it. So I think we would be, engaging the Auditor General. He's an independent office, has a lot of power to ensure that the constitutional obligations are discharged. And it is just not acceptable that, something that is mandated by the Constitution is being ignored, and is being ignored for, for all this while. So that is one area that we'll be looking to address. And then, of course, also to the Minister for Lands and Forestry for the affirmative action that we definitely want to engage Parliament around, because there's no reason why this issue remains unrequited.
So beyond this media, demands that you've made, I know that you've just mentioned that you'll be engaging Parliament amongst others. Are we going to see a raft of measures or action that will be taken by this coalition? But before you answer that, I'm wondering, a civil society by itself, it's strong enough, at least you have a voice. What really will be the objective of putting up to 34 CSOs together and 10 individuals? What exactly is the objective of this group?
So our mission, Amefa, is to build a culture of transparent and accountable governance that responds to the needs of Ghanaians. That is our simple, objective. We have to get into a space where governments, people that we entrust with power, who have our national resources, are actually, taking decisions in our interest. That includes us. That includes us in the decision. We don't want all these fait accompli, decisions that often turn out not to benefit us. And we need to build that culture, because if we are systematically doing governance the way that it needs to be done, some of these issues will easily address. That is the problem. That is the challenge that we have. So our mission is not a one-day mission. The reason why we have taken these particular issues now is because these issues are live. But we want to raise that concern that these kinds of actions or inactions or neglect cannot continue within the public sector. If you have been taxed with a responsibility, you have to discharge it. Let me give you an example for the issue of the asset declaration. The regime is put in place for a purpose. So if you have over 10,000 people that are just not complying with the Constitution and Act 550, it is just not acceptable. And people are just sitting there looking on to this kind of violation to happen. So what we are saying is that no, we have to stop this behavior. We have to take public service serious. We have to take the interest of the citizens seriously, particularly as we are using taxpayers to take care of everybody. So that is the culture that we want to start, and we're just starting with these processes. Now you were asking 34 groups and individuals. We are starting. We are asking Ghanaians to join this platform, to join this coalition, to join this movement, because it is not enough that we are just going to wait for politicians and for public officers to do what they are expected to do. If citizens don't wake up to their responsibilities, this is not going to happen. So we are asking more of citizens now. We have taken the initiative and we want others to join us.
Is there a particular criteria for joining the coalition?
You have to be a citizen, even if you're not a citizen, but somebody who subscribes to the commitments, the objects, and the principles of the Citizen Coalition. You are welcome. You cannot be partisan. This is not a partisan platform. This is a citizens platform. So if you're coming there, you cannot come and do partisan politics on that platform. So those are some of the basic criteria that you need. We just need people to sacrifice a little bit of their time to build a society that they all want to live in, and a society that is fair, is just, is prosperous, and we all benefit from it.
Well, we'll see. Evans Mensah surely qualifies. He ought to join. Thank you very much.
Amefa, you too qualify.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. That's Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante there with the CDDM part of that coalition. It's such a grand coalition.
It is. It's a scary force.
Yes.
When you look at the Oxfam, there are a few of them a few of them that you would not associate with, that sort of activism in Ghana. I mean, Oxfam does a lot of work, up north, etc. But for them to be part of this is a key one. You already have ISODEC is there, NetRight is there. You have TUC there. You have Star Ghana also there. I mean, they provide a lot of funding for this. So this is a pretty strong coalition of civil society organizations. Parliamentary Network for Africa is also there as well.
Well, they have individuals. You can join the individuals as well. Maybe let's take a look at it. George Wiafe joins us. He definitely ought to join this coalition.
Yeah, George
strong
Wiafe.
Voice.
Absolutely.
In the business world. Well, George, what do we have tonight?
If you have any good news, the IMF giving us some $10 billion soon.
I don't think that we may get up to that 10 billion. Maybe between $1 to $3 billion dollar support, or 4 billion, and so let's work within that range. Okay, and that will get
managing our expectations.
But the information minister gave us a figure, right?
3 billion.
3 billion.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, coming up in business, Bank of Ghana hints of a possible license withdrawal of banks with weak structures, making them exposed to multiple fraud cases, and rising debt stock. Clarity on Ghana's program request and would dominate discussions as IMF jets into town tomorrow for an official engagement with government from Wednesday. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Live and Ghana Pay. Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, the Bank of Ghana has indicated that it will not hesitate to withdraw the license of any commercial bank with weak structures, making it exposed to multiple fraud cases. It is coming after a recent Bank of Ghana report showed rising cases of staff involvement in fraud cases in the banking sector. Head of Financial Stability at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Joseph France, says they will not hesitate to take this action, even though it will be the last resort.
The Bank of Ghana ensures that there are stringent sanctions to banks.
Like?
Regulated institutions, not only banks, all regulated institutions, Bank of Ghana regulated institutions who fall foul of our regulations, all banks, all SDIs, all NBFIs. So we sanction them heavily. And of course, the Act says that if persistently you go foul of the law continuously, there are heavier cumulative sanctions that could happen.
Like, Doc?
Withdrawal of license, like you're saying, is specified in the law. We have mandatory and we have others that, cumulatively, if you don't, then all of them will be put together. And of course, that will be leveled against you. And it can lead to withdrawal of license. That is not to say that when there are fraud cases, then the Bank of Ghana will come to withdraw.
But they also do consistently and
together with all other things. If it's deliberate and that will be leveled against you. And of course, we go strictly by the Act, the Act 930. What the Act says is what we follow. And so all of them put together can lead to you losing your license and will not shirk that responsibility. We can do that and make sure you exit seamlessly and you don't create systemic implications for the whole.
Dr. Joseph Francis, Head of Financial Stability Department at the Bank of Ghana. The country's rising debt stock, clarity on economic program requested, and data from all sectors of the economy. These are the issues expected to dominate discussions as the IMF program negotiations commences from this Wednesday. Now, this will happen after the IMF team jets into town from tomorrow from Washington, D.C. A while ago, I put together this report on why Ghana's debt will still be a big issue on the negotiating table. Sources say the country's major problem now is debt sustainability, and therefore any program should look at how to quickly deal with this challenge facing the country. Initial data shows that it may involve a lot of work, and that could result in cutting down on government expenditure. We even understand that there could be the likelihood that some of government's flagship program may be frozen in order to contain this rise in debt stock. Ghana's debt stock ending March this year stood at 392 billion Ghana cedis, and we are currently classified by the World Bank as high risk of debt distressed country. But looking at the way things are going, it could take about 6 months or to a year for any program with Ghana to take off with the IMF. That is, if government makes that formal request today, and that should be followed by another one that is usually called a letter of intent that should be signed by the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, and Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Sources say the program to stabilize the economy should be put forward by government, and the IMF will give its approval. That is to say, the program should be owned by the government of Ghana. But looking at the way things are going, negotiations would indeed be difficult, and one may not rule out any surprises in the last minute as to whether government will really want to go ahead with the program with the IMF. Meanwhile, living before the country signs up for any IMF support program, the country has started benefiting from the news of going for an economic-backed program. Joy Business is learning that the cost of servicing our 2027 Euro bonds fell by 377 basis points. The yield dropped further to 33 basis points, that is today. Data from Bloomberg showed that before the announcement, the yield of the bond was trading at around 23.3%, but it's trading today at 19.3%. The National Petroleum Authority has maintained that it is committed to working with government to cushion consumers of petroleum products. It follows recent concerns of the restoration of the Unified Petroleum Price Fund margin, which has deprived consumers of the expected reduction, a claim that the National Petroleum Authority is contesting. Communications manager of the authority, Kudus Mohammed, says it is consistently working to deal with the concerns of consumers on the current development.
We have regular engagement with the minister and government for that matter, and we always play out the numbers to see what can be done and where a certain action can be taken. But the exactitude of the issue, because it's an advice, you don't go advise somebody in the closed door and come speak to it in the public. So yes, we've had regular engagement and we constantly are on that. My head economic regulation has constantly been in touch with the relevant authorities, and they've been having the scenarios, they've been playing out the numbers, and I believe that as and when a certain decision is taken, it will be communicated to us and we'll put it to action.
I asked this question because the perception is that the authority is doing little in these times to kind of cushion consumers.
I think the greater thing that people should even be commending the authority is the availability of the product, because, okay, so it could be high out there, but if the product was not available, you even have the money, you will not be able to access it. So one critical role of the authority is to ensure the regular supply and availability of the product across the country. Yes, the discussion of the pricing could be another issue. So if you use the issue of the rising pricing to judge the performance of the authority, then you will not be fair.
Kudus Mohammed speaks for the National Petroleum Authority. In the related development, all the three major oil marketing firms have adjusted their prices at the pumps. Now, market leader, that is Gold, is selling a litre of petrol at 11 Ghana cedis, 41 pesos. Diesel is going for 13 Ghana cedis, 91 pesos per litre. Now, this price would actually influence the other over 100 oil marketing firms on the market. And back to you, Evans, Mensah, and Amefa, still using your SUV Evans.
Yeah, so no, Amefa is still using her SUV. I saw it today, parked in front of the other. You please, the red one, please.
And what about your Land Rover, Evans?
He's packed it.
Land Rover.
Plus the Benz. The
Land Rover. Everybody knows it's not possible that
you don't bring it to work, right?
I don't own a Land Rover.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you own?
Huh?
What do you own?
Vitz.
Okay.
Toyota Vitz. Very small and efficient.
Very good. Let's do some of your messages and leave Evans Mensah alone. This one, it says, even me, Graphic and Times. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Bruning
Kates.
She says she's joining. I don't know if it's a she or a he.
Senam in Tema Comment 7 says, please, that's Terry Adams. I want to be part of the Civil Society Coalition. What should I do? You check with the website. Just check with the website, CDD's website. I'm sure you'll find details of this. I applaud the TUC's letter to the government. Very apt. At long last, a breath of sound judgment. God's own Ghana deserves better than MPP and NDC. That's Shem there sent us that one. This one, Barima said, government has brought this pressure and mess on itself. They did virtually everything on the basis of misrepresentation of facts to the people. I hope they learn lessons going forward. Ghana is indeed in a real mess, and that a president who can't, he says, simply crack the whip on his own appointees. God help us.
And we have Steele from Solpon says fiscal discipline includes giving in to labor demands only when the money can be found. It is pointless for labor to strike at this time, he says. And the things fall apart. The center cannot hold. The elephant is falling apart. Ghanaians should mark my words. After IMF, public workers will be sacked and the government will not employ anybody again. And Ajiman Joseph in Community 9 says, please tell Nagrat they are not the only people affected by the global economic crisis. When it falls, it's on all of us, he says. Promise from Keta says, if you lie about Ghana's economy, IMF will expose you. Teachers are suffering, journalists are suffering, nurses are suffering, babies, okay, goes on and on. And Mr. Evans, workers asked for salary increment and the government said there's no more money and they gave them only 4%, but expensive jets are being hired by the president, he says. And this from a NAPCO trainee in Tamale. It says, we are pleading with His Excellency the President to, as a matter of urgency, direct NAPCO Secretariat to pay with the NAPCO trainees. We are told they'll be put on the U-Start program. That's according to the Information Minister. And Kwesi Reynolds in Agunas Radio says, we shouldn't gloss over the fact that the global economy is in a serious financial crunch. And we'll take a final one from Kofi Protocol. He's asking a question. Is the IEA and Occupy Ghana part of the CSO's calling for public accountability? I really miss the finance minister's kinky party. So from the list that we have, IEA, Occupy Ghana are not part of it. Kwiku, are they? Okay.
We need to check that.
Okay.
We need to check that. Okay, let's do some sports now. Reku.
Well, thank you very much, Evans. And it's not been the best of days for Ghana's national team, and that's because Ghana's Black Maidens would not be competing in the next two editions of the Under-17 Women's Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers for age cheating. The decision also means that the team would not take part in the next two editions of the Women's World Cup. That's the Under-17. In addition, the team has also been fined $100,000. The Ghana Football Association failed to defend itself against the allegation lodged by the Moroccan FA. However, the country's football governing body still had room to appeal the decision, and that's exactly what Black Maidens Management Committee Chairman Nano Drosafo says they have done.
Yes, I asked the General Secretary this afternoon that since we did not respond to the matter at the lower court, can we appeal? He said yes. So I think, I don't know whether he also have the document. You see, this thing came out, I don't know, I've asked him to send me the document, I'm still waiting for it. If you have it, then I think you need to move into action quickly to respond to it. Because somebody cannot use maybe a Facebook date of birth to compare, because unfortunately I have two dates of birth on the Facebook myself. Because the one who created my Facebook for me used the wrong date of birth.
Well, that's it for sports. We'll still keep you up to date on what happens from the appeal. That's for the Black Maidens.
And he will be on the ballot for a record fifth time, this time as candidate number 5, pushing to hold the position of national chairperson of the NPP, which has eluded him on all previous occasions. I'm talking about Stephen Ntim. And he believes this is his time. Here's a political desk report building up to our coverage of the NPP national officers election slated for July 15 to 17.
I'm entreating you to support me to win the election as well as to deliver on this promise of working closely and supporting our president.
This was Mr. Ntim's prayer to delegates in 2018. He was, however, rejected at the polls, losing to Freddie Blay. He will be number 5 on the ballot in what will be his 5th attempt to become national chairperson. Mr. Ntim describes himself as a loyal servant.
If we succeed in doing this by allowing the truth to prevail, by being genuinely truthful to ourselves, it will go a long way to motivate the younger generation to also work in the same selfless spirit for the party.
Currently serving as national chairman of the Lands Commission, he comes to the race with over 20 years experience as a systems engineer. He is promising to unite the party.
We've stepped on each other's toes. There is the need for unity. We need to appease those aggrieved people before they will all come together to work in unison for the party to move towards breaking the 8. I've identified some constituencies in the country where even polling station elections have not taken place. Electoral area coordinators elections have not taken place. Constituency elections have not taken place. And for that matter, these constituencies did not even participate in their respective regional elections, especially in Ashanti region. I will make it my cardinal objective to make sure that there is unity in all these constituencies and package all of them to join the rest of the party in unison to break the 8 in 2024. Give me 100 days after making me the chairman, and I'm going to make sure that there is unity in all those affected constituencies, apart from those that are in court with the NDC and the Electoral Commission.
Mr. Ntim comes up against 7 others, but is seen by many as the front runner. Only time will tell.
And this is your election headquarters, building up to that very important decisions that the MPP will have to be making come the 16th of July.
Well, and we just have to wrap up on the election headquarters note tonight on Newsnight. We don't really want to go, but we have to. But there's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. You get more news there. And Nana Nsakwao is another weather today. We're unable to bring you. That's my opinion. I am Amefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah.